Already? Okay. Yes, so welcome again to this second session, which is entitled The Chain of Events Underlying the Development and Persistence of Antisocial Behavior. So the title of this session is also the title of a research project coordinated by Professor BASTO-PEREIRA that deeply analyzes how risk factors might impact differently according to the developmental stage, and specifically how these risk factors change themselves in specific sequences of events that help us to explain the emergence and persistence of antisocial behavior. So we have the pleasure to have here 3 speakers, all of them involved in the project. The first one is Teresa Pereira here. So it's my pleasure to present her as he's a research fellow at Williams James Research Center at ISPA in Lisbon, beginning with teaching, the marvelous word of teaching, interesting. She has a master's degree in psychology of deviant behavior and justice from the University of Porto. And she's currently working on this project, and she's going to talk us about the in a systematic review of the criminological theories that support this research. So with this promising trajectory, Teresa, nothing else to say, but just we are ready to listen to you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here today. My name is Teresa Pereira, and I'm a research fellow at the Williams James Center for Research. And today I'll be talking about the systematic review that we conducted addressing the developmental sequences of events leading to offending and persistence in crime. So, in recent years, research and theoretical models have been highlighting the importance for more than one or a set of risk factors for explaining certain antisocial and criminal behavior trajectories. To effectively interrupt the pathways leading to antisocial and criminal behavior, it is crucial to identify and understand the developmental sequences of risk factors that emerge at different life stages, at different age periods. Identifying the most prevalent sequences of risk factors that lead to antisocial and criminal behavior enable us to pinpoint which types of risk factors might be pivotal to address at different ages in order to break the developmental sequence that is leading to antisocial and criminal behavior. Given the limited evidence about the potential developmental sequences of risk factors, the first step in identifying these sequences is undertaking a thorough analysis of the available theoretical models. Therefore, we conducted a systematic review with 2 main aims. First, to examine similarities and differences among various criminological theories regarding the nature and temporal order of the mechanisms explaining antisocial and criminal behavior. And our second aim was to examine the proposed process of persistence in crime and or existence from crime. Our methodological strategy was divided into 2 sections. First, it included the screening of 3 key criminological handbooks containing collective theories of crime that addressed our aims. The Oxford Handbook of Developmental and Life Course Criminology, the Handbook of Criminological Theory, and also the book Criminology, Theories, Patterns, and Typologies. Second, we executed a rapid systematic review of publications from the prior 15 years between 2008 and 2023 to identify additional theories of crime, including new and emerging theories. We searched two main electronic databases, Web of Science and EBSCO, and the following search terms and Boolean operators were used. A manuscript was considered eligible if it was written in Portuguese, English, Spanish, or French, whereas the search through the pre-selected criminological handbooks was not limited to a specific time period. From the electronic databases, the article had to have been published between January 2008 and May 2023 for us to identify emerging theories. A work was excluded if the underlying theoretical approach focused on explaining only specific types of crimes, if the theoretical approach did not address the human component of antisocial and criminal behavior, and also if the theoretical approach did not specify the temporal order of explanations for antisocial and criminal behavior. In the rapid systematic review, a total of 66 articles were found, and of these 66 articles, 3 were duplicates that were removed. These 63 articles were evaluated based on their title and abstract, and 56 articles were subsequently excluded. These left 7 articles that were retained for full text reading, which 4 articles were excluded. 2 articles because did not specify theoretical approaches, and the other 2 addressed only specific types of crimes. Thus, 3 articles that identified either emerged or non-included theories of crime were included. So, in total, 18 theoretical models were included in our review, 15 through the focused literature review, and 3 through rapid systematic review. As I said, this review reviewed 18 theoretical models. The earliest publication was in 1969, and the most recent was in 2016. Of the 18 theoretical models, 13 specify phases of life, age periods, and 5 theories did not focus on specific life periods. 10 out of the 18 theoretical models addressed both of our aims, the temporal mechanisms explaining antisocial and criminal behavior, and also the processes leading to persistence and or desistance from crime. 6 theoretical models exclusively addressed first aim, the temporal mechanisms explaining antisocial and criminal behavior, and 2 theories exclusively addressed the second aim, the processes leading to persistence in crime and or desistance from crime. Here, I cannot present in detail this table. There is across 2 slides to what lack of time. So, in a broad overview, we can identify a wide range of risk factors. During childhood, the most prominent risk factor input for parenting that is present in 15 theoretical models, and individual differences such as low self-control and neuropsychological deficits that is present in 14 theoretical models. Socioeconomic vulnerabilities present in 11 theoretical models also emerge as a common childhood risk factor across theoretical models. Regarding adolescents, deviant peers appear as the most prevalent risk factor, present in 11 theoretical models. Additionally, we also observe the continuity of certain risk factors from childhood to adolescence, such as for parenting and also individual differences. And it is also important to highlight that during adolescence, school-related risk factors such as poor academic performance, poor school environment, poor school bonding become significant. Regarding the factors contributing to the persistence or desistance from crime, we observe that the most common factors associated with persistence in crime are antisocial bonding, present in 6 theoretical models, and weak prosocial bonds present in 5 theoretical models. In contrast, factors leading to desistance from crime include strong prosocial bonds present in 9 theoretical models and life events present in 8 theoretical models, life events such as marriage and job. Now, regarding our results, first, it is important to mention that we met the most common sequences of risk factors across theoretical models. So, concerning two-level risk factor sequences, the most theoretical approaches proposed for parenting during childhood, followed by affiliation with deviant peers in adolescence, and the sequence of factors that leads to antisocial and criminal behavior. 8 theoretical models emphasize the presence of poor parenting in childhood, that this presence of poor parenting in childhood persists into adolescence, leading to a stability of this risk factor and ultimately to antisocial and criminal behavior. It is noteworthy that 5 theoretical models propose that poor parenting in childhood can interfere with school-related issues, leading to poor academic performance. In a quick overview, in this diagram, all sequences begin in childhood with poor parenting. We just have one two-level risk factor sequence here, that is poor parenting in childhood, followed by deviant peers in adolescence. All of the others are three-level risk factor sequences. For example, 7 theoretical models suggest that poor parenting and low socioeconomic status in childhood, followed by deviant peers in adolescence, were part of a sequence of risk factors leading to antisocial and criminal behavior. We also identified 6 risk factors that, together with poor parenting in childhood, were associated with the affiliation with deviant peers in adolescence, and the risk factors are antisocial family member, disadvantaged neighborhood, poor school environment, neuropsychological deficits, difficult temperament, and also low self-control, impulsiveness. We highlight that poor parenting in conjugation with low socioeconomic status is followed by maintenance of poor parenting and also of the low socioeconomic status in adolescence, and this combination in childhood was also linked to the emergence of other risk factors in adolescence, such as antisocial family members, disadvantaged neighborhood, and poor academic performance. Also, the presence of antisocial family members in childhood, followed by affiliation with deviant peers in adolescence, was proposed in 6 theoretical models as a sequence leading to antisocial and criminal behavior. Likewise, the presence of antisocial family members combined with other childhood risk factors, such as low socioeconomic status and low self-control, was also followed by deviant peers in adolescence in certain theoretical models. Beyond sequences considering family risk factors, 6 theoretical models suggested that low self-control, impulsiveness in childhood, followed by affiliation with deviant peers in adolescence, was also a sequence leading to antisocial and criminal behavior. Among these 6 theoretical models, low self-control appeared alongside low socioeconomic status in 4 theories, with disadvantaged neighborhood in 3 theories, and also with neuropsychological deficits in 3 theoretical models. Concerning our second aim, the temporal mechanisms underlying persistence or existence of crime, it is important to highlight that theoretical models did not explicitly propose the chronological sequence of risk or protective factors that lead to either existence or persistence in crime. Nonetheless, we can interpret the factors that were intimated or suggested as leading to criminal persistence or desistance from crime across theories. So, regarding existence from crime, most theoretical models propose strong prosocial bonds and marriage as pivotal factors in existence from crime. 5 theoretical models proposed employment. 4 theories suggested the decrease in antisocial bonding, and 2 theoretical models proposed raising a family as factors contributing to existence from crime. Among these theories, here we have the most frequent combinations of protective factors that leads to existence from crime. So among these theoretical models, 6 proposed both marriage and strong social bonds. Likewise, 5 theoretical models proposed both marriage and employment. And, for example, 4 theoretical models proposed both strong social bonds and decreasing antisocial bonding. We also had 2 theoretical models that proposed both marriage and raising a family as factors leading to existence from crime. 3 theoretical models emphasize marriage, employment, and strong social bonds. Also, 3 theoretical models emphasize marriage, employment, and decreasing antisocial bonding. And we also have 3 theoretical models that suggested marriage, strong social bonds, and decrease in antisocial bonding. Additionally, 2 theoretical models emphasize these 4 factors: employment, strong social bonds, marriage, and decrease in antisocial bonding as factors leading to existence from crime. Conversely, antisocial bonding, weak social bonds, and neuropsychological deficits were the most mentioned mechanisms leading to existence in crime. Some life events were also subjective, such as separation from a partner and losing a job. And likewise, 4 theoretical models propose both neuropsychological deficits and weak social bonds. And among these 4 theoretical models, 3 proposed neuropsychological deficits, weak social bonds, and antisocial bonding as risk factors for persistence in crime. Here, I will provide a broader picture of our findings. And according to our knowledge, this is the first systematic attempt to map the various theoretical approaches that address the sequential order of risk and protective factors that explain the development of and persistence and existence from antisocial and criminal behavior. This review is especially important because it makes it possible to identify which types of risk factor sequences are more consensual across theoretical models, and this might provide valuable insights for future investigations and help in developing cycles of risk for antisocial and criminal behavior. Neuropsychological deficits and family risk factors during childhood are at or near the beginning of the onset of the sequence of risk factors, carrying on into adolescence with multiple risk factors from several domains, such as for academic performance and affiliation with evident peers. The most consistently proposed crime predictive sequence was for parenting during childhood, followed by affiliation with evident peers during adolescence. Additionally, multiple theoretical models suggested that family problems experienced during childhood are caused or aggravated by low socioeconomic status and strains related to poverty, ultimately leading to a significantly increased likelihood of antisocial and criminal behavior. Similarly, theoretical approaches also propose that during childhood residing in a disadvantaged neighborhood and experiencing poor parenting contributed to engaging in deviant peer relationships during adolescence. Some theoretical models also suggested that consequences of poor parenting during childhood are accompanied and aggravated by individual risk factors such as neuropsychological deficits or low self-control, which facilitate a young person's subsequent affiliation with deviant peers during adolescence, and this association then increases the risk of antisocial and criminal behavior. In fact, 5 theoretical models suggested that for parenting, when combined with low socioeconomic status, the presence of antisocial family members, or low self-control in childhood, were associated with poor school performance during adolescence, and this in turn leads to antisocial and criminal behavior. There were also some theoretical models suggesting that low self-control currently in life is followed by poor academic performance, ultimately culminating in antisocial and criminal behavior. It was possible to observe that some factors potentially leading to existence from crime were in fact the opposite end of the spectrum from those contributing to the persistence of antisocial family member or of antisocial and criminal behavior. For instance, strong prosocial bonds, marriage, and employment were identified as explanatory factors that might motivate the process of existence from crime, and on the other hand, antisocial bonding, separation from a partner, and job loss were identified as potentially explanatory causes of persistence in criminal careers. In fact, relationships, marriage, and employment play a crucial role in promoting informal social control and restructuring daily routines, and studies suggest that stable employment can reduce and structure time, boost self-esteem, and foster the development of a legitimate identity, all of which contribute to resistance from crime. These turning points, such as marriage, raising a family, getting a job, often lead to the adoption of new social roles, prompting individuals to reconsider their values and their priorities, which may encourage a shift away from criminal behavior. Finally, regarding our recommendations for investigations, first, given the absence of theoretical models that address the temporal sequence of factors influencing crime resistance or persistence, we recommend that future research in this area should prioritize investigating the relationships among factors influencing crime resistance and persistence and their chronological order. Second, we recognize a need for life course theoretical models that incorporate the identification of key risk and protective factors and the relative accumulation of these factors. Third, some theoretical models did not differentiate between ages or stages of life, and this makes it difficult to understand the temporal order in which risk factors might emerge throughout life. So we recommend that theory should differentiate between ages or stages of life at which risk factors appear. Finally, there is also a need for theoretical models that provide explanations and clear predictions for the adult onset of crime. So I would like to thank you all for your attention during this presentation, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share our research with you. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Teresa, for this deep and systematic presentation. Thank you. And now the next speaker is Professor DARRICK JOLLIFFE. He's a professor of criminology at Royal Holloway University in London. And his main area of expertise has to do with high quality assessment of interventions designed to prevent and reduce violence. So he has been involved in a wide range of assessment. For example, interventions to reduce violence amongst ethnic prisoners in several prisons. Also, various different national and international agencies, such as the Ministry of Justice in London, but not also in Chile or Denmark, Greece, have commissioned Professor JOLLIFFE to undertake evaluation research. Apart from this impressive task in the practical field, Professor JOLLIFFE also presents an extensive and invaluable trajectory in academia. He has been author and co-author of more than 80 review articles. And with Professor David Farrington, they are leading the Cambridge study in delinquent development, one of the most influential studies in criminology. So now the presentation is about Cambridge study, and so we will be very happy to listen to your intervention. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this working? Okay, it is. Check. Thank you very much for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to listen to some amazing talks already. What I'm planning to do in a relatively short period of time is present sort of an introduction to the Cambridge study, and presenting this always makes me a bit sad because this really is David Farrington's project. And I've taken it over because he's become a bit too unwell to do this. But I'm going to cover sort of the basics of the Cambridge study because it becomes important with what Miguel will be presenting next. I'm then going to give a brief description of some of the more recent findings that have come from the Cambridge study in delinquent development. Following that, I'm going to talk about two developments that have taken place with the Cambridge study relatively recently. So some exciting things that are taking place. Okay, we're ready. The original aim of the Cambridge study, which was originally established by Donald West, was very much to describe the development of criminal behavior and antisocial behavior over time. This was particularly focused in one area of London, which is never mentioned, but actually, this is a picture of what that area of London looked like in 1964 when the study started. They were very interested in understanding why offending began, why it continued, and why it ends, so desistance as well. To look at the relative importance of different predictors over time. Is low academic achievement more important than high impulsivity, for example? And to look and see whether these correlates are the same with different age periods as well. Also, because it was a longitudinal study, they were going to be able to study the life events that took place as well. So the impact of marriage, for example. So this began in one particular London area where 411 boys took part in the study. They basically set up a research office in this unnamed part of London and included all the boys who were within 1 mile, were going to school within 1 mile of this area. The boys were age 8 or 9 in 1961 when it started, so they were mostly born in 1953. These young boys were predominantly white, they were predominantly working class, and predominantly had both an operative father and mother. The father was usually the breadwinner. This was very much what it was like back in 1961, 62 in this particular area of London. So boys were first interviewed at age 8 to 10, but subsequently were interviewed again at ages 14, 16, 18, 21, 25, 32, and 48. In all the years except for 21 and 25, there was funding to interview the entire sample. In 21, 25, they weren't able to get the money to do so. The parents of the original boys were also interviewed once a year between the ages of when the boys were aged 8 to 15. They also spoke to the friends of those boys between the ages of 8 to 10, also spoke to the teachers as well. Criminal records for these individuals are available up to age 61, their last search in 2017. We are working on getting criminal records again, but we're finding that quite challenging. So you can see that there's multiple constructs and multiple data sources that exist as part of this Cambridge study. Just to give you an idea of what took place during the social interview at age 48, the men were interviewed about their life success, about their accommodation, about employment, about drug use, heavy drinking and gambling, physical fighting. At age 48, there was also the opportunity for a psychiatric interview. So a psychiatrist, a subsample of the men put themselves forward for a psychiatric interview. There was measures of psychopathy and psychiatric disorders. This structured clinical interview before the DSM was administered. The partners of these men were interviewed as well. And there was biological data taken as part of the medical interview. So their height, their weight, so body mass index could be calculated as well. So this gives you an idea of the comprehensiveness of this study. In addition to the males, in about 2001, 2002, the study was funded to examine the children of the original boys. So at that time, there were 691 children who were known, who had a date of birth. And of those, 653 were eligible for interview because they were over age 18. Their father hadn't refused them being interviewed because we needed to get the father's approval to interview the men because of data protection laws. There are males and females in this as well. The median age was about 25 of these individuals. And so you can see again that a very high proportion, 84.4% of those who were eligible for interview were included. So this just gives you an idea of the multi-generational element of the Cambridge study into development. We have the parents of the original boys, what we call the G1 sample. We have the actual sample where we have a considerable amount of data. The boys have been followed up from age 8 to 10 until 48. And we have the generation 3, a one-off study, cross-sectional study of the children of the Cambridge study. So probably the most collection of most recent findings come from a book that David had, and I was fortunate enough to be part of as well, called Offending from Late Childhood from Childhood to Late Middle Age. This is second edition. You can hopefully get the QR code there, and I'll leave it for a sec, but you can also just Google it. Okay. Is it working? Is it working? Okay, cool. Okay. I'm gonna move on now, so no groans. The link for the QR code here is the actual paper where these results are discussed. One of the most interesting things that we're able to do in the Cambridge study that we can't do in many other studies is actually look at criminal career duration, not just whether someone has committed a crime or not, but how long is the duration of their criminal career. When did they start and when did they end? And for us to know when they end, we had to follow up people for a very long period of time. So you can see as we look through what David produced here, that 40 of the males started offending at the ages of 10 to 13. Those males had an average number of 9.3 offenses and a criminal career duration spanning from the age of average age of 12.3 to 29.7. So the important thing to see is as individuals, as the age of onset got later and later, the number of offenses that they committed got fewer and their criminal career duration got less. So this is a finding that's consistent with much that we know about developmental life criminology. Those individuals who start early have relatively long and more prolific criminal careers. Another really important finding that came from this 2020 paper was looking at the time since previous conviction. So you can see that those individuals who had gone 5 years, or in the first 5 years, about 50%, 48.3% of those individuals reoffended. If they'd gone 10 years, it dropped to 29% being reoffended, people who had reoffended. I'd just like to consider this when we talk about studies where we're looking at reoffending. Typically, we'll follow people up for a year, maybe 2 years. But these are relatively high reoffending rates, and this is a community sample. What is interesting is that we can conclude by about, if individuals who have gone about 30 years, that they had similar levels of the likelihood of conviction to those people who had never been convicted before. So you can go on or the impact of offending does stick with you, increases your likelihood of reoffending, but if you can go 30 years, then it comes back to similar to those people who've never been convicted before. Another important contribution is looking at how these childhood risk factors, again, not how they relate to whether somebody commits an offense or not, but the duration of their criminal career. So looking at persistent offenders. When we're looking at persistent offending as operationalized as those individuals who had committed offenses before the age of 20 and or had criminal career durations of about 30 years, you can see that the strongest predictors of this life for persistent offending are things like harsh discipline, poor parental supervision, which fits with the talk that we just heard, having a convicted father, and parental conflict. Very interestingly, when David compared the predictors of conviction, just one-off offending, to those that were predicted criminal career duration, there wasn't a great correspondence. So David makes a very important point, saying the extensive knowledge about risk factors for offending does not necessarily advance knowledge about the risk factors for life course persistent offending. George Azara and David then looked at people who are life course persistent offenders based on convictions and compared that to people who are life course persistent offenders based on self-reports, and actually found that many of the childhood risk factors are very similar. So there's nothing special about those people who are convicted as life course persistent offenders compared to those people who are self-report, although there was considerable overlap between the two, of course. Another contribution to knowledge that the Cambridge study makes is with regards to health, because you'll see that in the social interview, we asked people about their health. We also had some medical information as well. So Guy Skinner and David Farrington looked at self-reported organic illness and hospitalizations, and those individuals who were life course persistent, who had long criminal career durations, or those who started with convictions later on in their life, tended to have poor health. Those people who were life force persistent offenders had twice the likelihood of disabling medical conditions. And this life force persistent offending also predicted or increased the likelihood of mental health problems later on. Offending is very similar to smoking. If you give it up, your health will get better, but it takes some time. So those individuals who stopped offending at age 20, by the time that they had aged, that their health was not much different than those people who hadn't been convicted. Another contribution that the Cambridge study makes is in the production of the integrated cognitive antisocial potential theory. In this theory, the main construct is antisocial potential. And this is the between individual differences that people carry with them. Impulsivity, strain, and modeling all feed into this long-term antisocial potential. But there's also short-term antisocial potential as well. There's within individual variation, being drunk, having just lost your job, or situational factors. And it's the coming together of these two factors that predict offending. And so the integrated cognitive antisocial potential theory looks something like this. And you can see at the top half, we have sort of those factors that feed into the long-term antisocial potential. Things like life events, being impulsive, having antisocial models, which is why potentially having parents without convictions is such a strong predictor in the Cambridge study. This theory was tested by David Farrington and Tara McGee using the concept of antisocial potential. And what they did is they used a 20-item antisocial attitude scale, and this scale had been administered to the men at age 18, 32, and 48. And what they found is the results generally support this idea that those people who are most antisocial at one age tend to be the most antisocial at later ages as well. Those who are highest on antisocial attitudes were different from those, different in childhood risk factors from those that didn't have that high antisocial attitudes. Other contributions to theory that derived from the Cambridge study include labeling theory, where Joe Murray has done some work, and there was also some absolutely incredible mathematical modeling that was done by John McLeod and David Farrington, testing scientific careers, criminal career theories as well. Finally, the Cambridge study has made some really important contributions about life events. Delphi and Theobald looked at the impact of the first child and marital breakdown on later offending. And what she found is that there was reduction in offending for several years before and several years after birth of the first child, but these effects weren't large. However, the reductions were large with what were called shotgun weddings, and that's where the woman was pregnant before they got married. If the man remained with the child for 5 years, there was greater evidence of reductions in convictions later on. So having the first child can result in lower levels of convictions. So that's sort of a whistle-stop tour of important findings of the Cambridge study, but we're actually progressing this in a couple of ways. As always with the Cambridge study, and very much in David's style, there are ongoing analysis of existing data taking place. You'll probably see studies from the Cambridge study coming out in some journals in the future. But we are actually doing two things. The first thing that we're doing is developing the Cambridge study and Delinquent Development Data Archive, which has been graciously funded by the Newton Trust in Cambridge. And we're also pushing forward with an age 70 interview, although both are proving a challenge. So, as you might imagine, with such a comprehensive study that was started in 1961, I know it's hard for us all to imagine, but there were no computers back then. So how were the records kept? The records were kept with paper. I know you all laugh, but they were there. And this was kept in perhaps not the most secure location. And so we needed to do something with these data. The data were not necessarily accessible. Paper breaks down and becomes less readable over time. This is what the data looked like. There were filing cabinets everywhere. Data was on top of everything, but it was very meticulously organized. So what we did, there were 16 filing cabinets in total. Each filing cabinet had different tests with different data in it. Some were labeled by participant ID, so person 001, and some information there about a psychological test or some communication with that individual. And some just had particular pages. It was all very well organized, however. So with the grant that we received, the physical records were removed and they were electronically scanned. This and also an inventory was created to ensure quality assurance, because we didn't want to destroy these paper records unless we could be certain that the electronic records accurately represented those. So every once in a while we would be sent this document saying, oh, it doesn't look very clear. We would query that, and we could look at the actual physical documents as well. Sometimes these weren't clear because time had aged them, the writing wasn't clear, and so forth. But other times we were able to have them scanned again. They now all exist as high-resolution scans. Some of it is machine readable, but not all of it, because of different forms of handwriting. Yes, we had to handwrite things as well. We didn't always type them. And happily now, this data is all secure and held at the Institute of Criminology at Cambridge. This is an important piece of criminological history. The data is very complete, and there is fantastic record retention here. And this is not only just the physical records, but there's much what we refer to as miscellaneous things, particular pictures of the area, descriptions of newspaper articles that we believe relate to individuals who were in the Cambridge study. So there is the possibility of a number of research studies that might take place here, particularly ones related to history and thinking of
the origin of crime. Examining each risk factor independently of a trajectory only allows researchers to contemplate a single frame of a complex process, while studying the sequences of events make it possible to see more of the entire movie. And thank you. Please feel free to contact me. And part of this project is already published at the Journal of Developmental and Life Cross Criminology. And this work actually, it's already submitted and under review. And the book, we expect also to write a book on this topic, because this book is now being prepared. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, some questions? Yeah, thank you very much, Miguel, for this amazing and innovative, really innovative approach and analytic strategy. So if it's time for questions, thoughts, someone? Oh, Manu. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Darrick was asking me a question, so I have a question as well. And I want I wanted to ask a question to all three of you, but you don't all have to answer that question. Darrick presented David's theory, and it's basically a causal theory. But all three of you talked a lot about risk factors. Now, those of us who were in Bucharest maybe have listened to Pierre Wikström talking about risk factors. And one of the things that he said is risk factors are the worst thing that happened to criminology, because they prevented us from thinking about the distinction between risk factors and causality. And so I just wonder what your thinking is about this. And so to make this more specific, are you trying to convince us that promiscuous behavior causes crime? If not, what does it actually measure?
Can I go ahead? So I completely understand, and I shared some of your concerns regarding risk factors that are maybe the most common the most common type of research in criminology. Nonetheless, I think that always depends how we do things. So if we use risk factors that has a first indicator to then select some really relevant risk factor and test for causality, that might be interesting. For example, the situation about promiscuous sex, many times they are just, of course, indicators of a broader picture and a broader lifestyle. What I really think is extremely important to use these amazing and rich data sets to first understand what's really is being related with every problem. Okay, and then you can see, okay, let me see if this is really a causal factor. And I really think honestly that this kind of analysis allow us to improve our hypothesis for causality. That is my point. So if you pick a magnetic risk factor that you see that is at the beginning of multiple risk factors, I think the likelihood this is causal might be bigger than we just choose randomly a certain risk factor. So that would be my research was. At the same time, I think that advantage of do this kind of analysis allow us to see more of what is happening with these persons and with this type of lifestyle. And that would be also my answer. So give us another kind of perception that might be important to make good hypothesis, including causal hypothesis. So that would be my response.
Can I go? Okay. Maybe risk factors are the worst thing that happened to academic criminology, but the fact that some of these risk factors have come into the common vernacular, policymakers know about these sorts of things, and they have been used. So I'm thinking here about particularly Sure Start centres in England and Wales. So these were centres that were established in particularly deprived areas where people could go for support. There would be some parenting classes, there would be other things going there, and I'm aware of the limitations of some of these things. But a relatively recent review by the Institute for Fiscal Studies has shown that those had an impact in reducing the likelihood of problematic behaviors. Had we not engaged in this sort of risk factor thinking, we may not have engaged policymakers and started to get those sorts of things used. There are many problems about those sorts of centers and the analysis, and I know can be challenged. But I just think there is a benefit in starting to think a lot like we do about health things. Eating at McDonald's every day for a month may not cause you to get sick, but it's probably going to increase the likelihood quite significantly. Eating at McDonald's a lot is a risk factor for poor health. Just like we know that some things like low school attainment, like high hyperactivity are associated with problematic behaviors down the line. We may never get to the point of causality, but by starting to discuss these sorts of things, I think we can have some benefits more widely than academic criminology.
Speakers should not ask too many questions here, but I need to relate. Am I hearable in the, in the back? Yeah. Manuel's question was, of course, a little provocative, but he was wrong. Right, my unconscious feeling. No, I was sitting with P.O. Wickstrom numerous times at the bank outside of the institute in Cambridge. Of course, he's a smoker, and he could talk to me inside the building. And we discussed these issues frequently. And I think what they have done now in following these pathways is highly important. We should, however, and this is why I agree with you, not use risk factors more or less unconsciously as causes. But P.O. also talks about what are the causes of causes. So a sequence of causes, relationships. And we have some trends in research. It all leads back to some brain processes. The brain developmental processes we have here. Also some sequences where hyperactivity came in rather late. Neuropsychological researchers say it comes in very early. It is a difficult temperament already shortly after birth. So insofar, I think it is a very important discussion, but disentangling what they try to do and did very well in my view, at least some different pathways and sequences of risks. I think we both agree, and the same is in your study and in the jury study. The real test of a course must be an experiment. Is a change of a factor really leading to a change in the outcome? And we will address some of these issues in the afternoon. So we are in between, not too much against it. It is important, but also what Darrick now mentioned, we need not to make life for practitioners too complicated, then they cannot use our concepts very easily in their daily work. Thank you.
Can just make a comment. I agree. So our idea was, because I always say, oh, but this risk factor is related to that, and at the same point you have multiple number of risk factors, and and as we all know, and I had the privilege to engage in many of these discussions with many of you. But at the end of the day, the human behavior, it's simultaneously the result of a sequence or a cascade of facts, but simultaneously is typically there are not only one risk factor, only one only one cause. It's caused by multiple factors, or the propensity to something happen result from multiple factors. So for me, it's particularly important two things. First, to disentangle these relations, and I guess it's one of the first time you can see these disentangled, and not, oh, this is the date, but how they are connected. So give us some level of insight. It's not perfect, but give us some level of insight. And in addition to that, I think that allow us, I did a review of systematic reviews of meta-analysis with Professor David Farrington, that we tried to order all the meta-analysis by their effect size to see what are really those key most important longitudinal predictors. Because the problem is with these multi-causal multiple factors causing antisocial behavior, at some point you need to say, we need to prioritize this and this. And you need to do these 2 or 3 interventions, do these 2 or 3 very important aspects very well, you know. So this thing of priorization, what is really important to address, I think that is one advantage to see this, but I can also see the limitations, and I agree that we really need to go more for causality and pick up, but I think that risk factors nowadays have been working as an enemy of studying causality, but it can be also an ally of testing causality, because it allows to see where you should start. What are the most important risk factors we could use, or the most important sequences, and we could use them to test causality, or to think about designs that allow us to test causality. So that might be my take on that.
Okay. One more, or it's okay?
Yeah, one more is okay.
Yeah. One more? Oh, who was the faster? Just one, sorry.
Thank you for the wonderful presentations. Let me just put an issue that Professor Jolliffe take it here. It's the political issue. I was formerly the Director General of Prison and Probation Services in Portugal, and what we can see is that from 30 years ago, this neoliberal shift in the politics that puts in the individual all the blame for his non-result in his society. And your presentation, Miguel, tell us about low IQs. That's an individual thing, and I'm a little bit concerned with this idea that maybe the problem is in the individual and not in the more global society. And I really think that Professor Jolliffe said the important thing: we have to do something with the politics and enhance all the risk factors that are in the society that we cannot, if you cannot move them, well, we don't succeed, you know, but just a comment, and thank you all.
Thank you very much for your question. I think that sometimes you make and of course it's the scientific meeting, so we have the level of communication more specific, but in any case, I think that sometimes there is a wrong public perception that the individual and even the biological factors are not affected by the environment, which is extremely wrong. For example, if someone is extremely poor, underprivileged background, if someone is not give a proper education or a support to his challenge during the education pathway, that might affect partially his or her IQ. So these are all related. It's not only biology or other individual factors affecting the criminal propensity, but it's also environment affecting biology. So, and sometimes we don't have this notion, and of course it's not 100%, and there are neuropsychological variations, as we all know, but effectively environments also matters, and sometimes environments is a risk factor for other risk factors, and that was my point today.
Okay, so think we finish here. Yeah, so thank you to everybody and see you next at 3 o'clock here. Oh. You were very good. Yeah.